I've got various different stories I could tell about in-flight refueling SR-71s and some of the things that happened to us while we were doing it. Well, how are we doing on time? Is there, it's at home. Got about 5 minutes, so rather than tell you more stories, do we have to get out of here in 5 minutes? Or?
Not necessarily.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and open it to questions, and that way you won't just hear one story after another from me. If anybody's got anything else they'd like to throw out there.
Curious about the St. Elmo's fire.
Oh, that's a wonderful story. Yeah. So when you're flying out across the Pacific, you can very frequently encounter this thing called St. Elmo's fire. If you've read Moby Dick or any other sea voyages, you might hear about these sort of sparkling, glowing stuff that shows up at the top masts of ships. Sometimes it'll work its all the way down. Sometimes you'll talk about fireballs that appear because of the St. Elmo's fire. When you're flying an aircraft basically is a huge Faraday shell. And a Faraday shell is just basically a metal ball where you've got all the electricity happening on the outside and it can't get in because it's all metal. So you're flying along and you can start to get these little sparkly things show up sort of at the top of your windshield. And if the conditions are right, not only will it cover up your entire windscreen so you can't see anything in front of you, but it will start to come around and cover the entire aircraft. This happened to one of our crews when they were refueling out in the Pacific with an SR-71. The SR-71 pilot, of course, had a wonderful view of this whole thing happening, and that electricity, this little blue sparks just forming all the way around the airplane, coming around and reached all the way down to the boom that was, the booms extended from the tanker, reaching down to the SR. He could see that electricity start to crackle and come down that boom. And he's not worried because he knows that both aircraft are Faraday shells. He's not expecting any of the electricity to do any harm to him. But he's got to be able to see out his window. He's wearing a spacesuit, so he's got about this much vision. His windows, if you go look at the SR out there in the museum, his windows are about that big, on either side. And he's trying to keep track of 3 tankers that are out there, making sure he doesn't run into them while he's trying to refuel. And this sparkly stuff's coming down the boom. It starts to cover his aircraft. And then it starts to cover his windows. So he said, I've had enough fun for tonight. I've got enough fuel. I can make this mission. We're going to disconnect now, and I'm getting out of here. And so he called for a disconnect. He didn't do a pressure disconnect like he usually does, but he called for a disconnect when he had enough fuel on board to get the mission done, and just as the crackly electricity was covering his windows. And as he disconnected, the electricity did not. A good 75 feet of electricity connected the 2 aircraft, and then when it snapped, there's an audible bang when it did that. So there's a lot of strange, creepy things up in the sky.